Even though Elon Musk didn't believe in signs in general, one caught his eye as he rounded a bend that peaceful night in Los Angeles. It cost nothing to be loved by God. To what end? The guy clutching it didn't appear at all desperate or particularly interested in drawing attention to himself. As if the stars held the answers Elon hadn't ever thought to ask, he just stared at them. Elon hesitated, even though he knew better. I questioned, what's this all about? A subtle smile spread across the man's face. Mike, can you tell me what you're after? It caught Elon unawares and he blinked. In particular, he disliked it when complete strangers probed him. He could have left, yet he stayed. Elon just stared at the guy who had the guts to approach him in such a composed and assured manner. The wind rustling down the deserted street was the sole sound as the faraway hum of traffic subsided. There was unease emanating from the man. He didn't mean to be judgmental, but his eyes appeared to read his mind. The man spoke again, sending Elon's mind racing, just as he was about to seize control of the conversation. You've built rockets, conquered industries, and changed how the world sees the future, the man whispered with a solid bass voice. But tell me this, what's the point of touching the stars if you've never touched your own soul? Just like a sudden rush of wind, Elon was hit by the words. Reflection was not his strong suit. Everything he did was based on reason, new ideas, and progress. However, he found himself in this same situation, confronted with a homeless man whose query briefly rendered him speechless. He was about to reply when he suddenly stopped talking. Equations and algorithms weren't going to cut it for this type of challenge. Elon attempted to laugh off the weird sensation that had gripped him by forcing himself to laugh. Reach out and touch my spirit, that's beautiful, but it's hard to quantify, isn't it? As if delighted by Elon's evasion, the man tilted his head slightly, but he still hadn't introduced himself. Not everything that matters can be measured, he pointed out, and not everything you measure truly matters. A blink from Elon, this was an unprecedented risk for a man who was always encircled by apologists and yes men. Here was an outsider who didn't care about his fame or fortune, daring to challenge him in a way no one had ever dared before. Who are you? With his curiosity piqued, Elon couldn't help but ask. A subtle smile spread across the man's face. Just someone who knows what it's like to lose everything and find something greater. Skepticism was beginning to seep back into Elon's voice as he crossed his arms. And what is that something greater? The guy pointed to the cardboard sign that was placed next to him. Meaning. Love. The truth. You can't program or patent these things. With a quick look at the sign and then back at the man, Elon continued. You're all by yourself, with just a blanket and some cardboard for company. Did you really discover all those things? The man's grin remained unwavering. They weren't seated here when I said that. When I stopped trying to achieve every other goal, I finally discovered them. Elion's thoughts were racing. The man's remarks seemed ridiculous on the surface, but he could feel the sharp reality of them in his bones. Despite his wealth, status, and influence, there were times when it seemed meaningless. Until now, he had forbidden himself from dwelling on those moments. All right, Elon eventually stated with a resolute tone, imagine for a second that you're correct and that I'm omitting some truth. Where would I even begin my search for it? As if anticipating this very inquiry, the man's eyes widened in surprise. First things first, stop thinking you know everything. Join me and I will demonstrate my point. Elon was hesitant. The rational side of his mind begged him to just leave and ignore it. However, he felt compelled to remain by some unseen aspect of himself. For reasons he couldn't fathom, he proceeded to nod. Very well, just show me. As he stood up, the man folded his blanket meticulously. Very well, just so, it's not what you were hoping for. Elon Musk, whose fortune was built on a foundation of control and predictability, suddenly found himself venturing into the unknown. On this quest, he would discover facts that not even he had anticipated. Through a maze of empty streets and poorly illuminated alleys, Elon pursued the man Daniel when he eventually introduced himself. As he stepped out of Los Angeles, the weight of the globe seemed to be building on top of it. He was ready to inquire as to their destination when Daniel's composed expression made him think twice. There was an air of intrigue surrounding the man since he said so little. Elon's rational thinking attempted to discern the nature of the truth that Daniel might reveal to him. However, Daniel suddenly halted and turned to confront him just as he began to feel silly for following along. Up ahead, you won't find what you're after. Look inside Elon's chest, he said, but most people won't let themselves look that deep. With his bewilderment evident, Elon arched an eyebrow. And where does walking through dark alleys fit into this grand metaphor? Daniel let out a low-volume laugh as his voice reverberated off the brick walls. You can't always use metaphors, Mr. Musk. In order to fully appreciate the light, you must first traverse the darkness. A dilapidated church with boarded-up windows was pointed out by Daniel to Elon before he could answer. It appeared deserted, a remnant of an era long since past. Simply stated, here we are, was Daniel's response. This is where you're taking me. As uncertainty grew in Elon's voice, he inquired. As he pushed open a side door, Daniel could hear it squeak open on its hinges. The chilly, deserted streets outside were dramatically contrasted with the warm sunshine that seeped in. Please, hop in. A new sort of wealth will be shown to you. As one entered, one could almost smell the candles and hear whispers of conversation. The gentle light of the dancing flames cast a warm glow on a few of individuals as they sat in a circle close to the front. Despite the visible signs of wear and tear on their clothing and faces, they maintained a calm and content demeanor. Whispering to Elon, "These are my people," Daniel silently invited him to join him in the circle. They've lost everything the world values, yet they found something it can never take away. Elon was at a loss for words and action. He was accustomed to imposing his will on rooms full of investors and executives, but he felt exposed and out of place here. A friendly-looking old woman among the women raised her eyes to meet his and grinned. "Welcome," she stated plainly, as if she had anticipated his arrival the whole time. On the edge of the circle, Elon sat down and nodded courteously. He silently absorbed the group's anecdotes for the following hour. They shared stories of suffering, despair, broken families, and struggles with substance abuse. However, they did express optimism, sharing how their faith and support from one another had given them strength. For a while, Elon felt like he was just observing people's lives completely cut off from his own. A peculiar feeling of connection, though, washed over him as the stories progressed. He had never had such tranquility in his life until he met these individuals, who appeared to have nothing by societal norms. Daniel then shifted his attention to him. "Your turn." It caught Elon unawares, and he blinked. "What? What?" Daniel said, "Tell us your story," in a tone that was both soft and authoritative. Not the well-known one, the authentic one. Elon was hesitant. He had no practice being vulnerable, particularly with his total strangers. But with all eyes on him, he felt compelled to speak before he could give it any thought. He shared stories of his relentless pursuit of innovation, the personal sacrifices he had made, and the times he had felt alone but never told anybody about. The more he let his feelings out, the more he understood how much he had been suppressing. After he finished, there was a little hush in the room. Daniel proceeded to speak. "You've built machines to change the world, but what have you built for yourself?" Following Daniel's inquiry, the room grew silent, and Elon briefly felt as though the entire world were pressing down on him. But the church resounded with a deafening boom as he began to answer. Nobody moved. Suddenly, the door swung wide, and a squad of uniformed men stepped inside, their flashlights piercing the low light. "This property is condemned," one of them declared with an official, icy tone of voice. "Everyone needs to leave immediately." Frightened expressions spread across the group as they started to disperse. Daniel faced the police officers unflinchingly while remaining composed. "This is a sanctuary," he declared angrily. "These people have nowhere else to go." It was the officer's problem. He or she blurted out, "You've got 10 minutes to clear out, or we're calling him back up." Elon got up out of his chair out of the blue. "Hold on a second," he said with an authoritative tone. "Do you know who I am?" He was met with the officer's doubtful gaze. "It makes no difference to me. The law remains the law." Elion's thoughts were racing. For the first time in years, he felt helpless. He was accustomed to exerting control in every circumstance. He understood that power and wealth couldn't solve all his problems. The gang regrouped once the cops had departed, their spirits down but unbroken. Elon sat down next to Daniel, who appeared remarkably unconcerned by the recent events. "This happens a lot, doesn't it?" "May I inquire?" Elon said. Then Daniel gave a little nod. "A lot more than you might expect. However, adding more darkness won't help. You must shine like a beacon." The oversimplification of the remark irritated Elon, and he scowled. "However, you must not allow others to control you. Someone needs to figure out how to keep this area safe." Daniel gave him a serious look. "Mr. Musk, another conflict is unnecessary for the globe. It needs individuals who can take a stand without compromising their own values." Elon carried the words with him long after he departed from the chapel that evening. The people he met kept running through his mind, and he was unable to sleep because of it. Despite his achievements, he came to terms with the fact that there were conflicts he had never even considered, crises that defied strategy and physical force. Plus, he had an unfamiliar sensation for the first time in quite some time. Feelings of shame? Or was it just a glimmer of determination? Elon devoted the following several days to solving the problem. He looked into the legislation, talked to specialists, and even got some favors from influential people. However, it was as if nothing had been done. Be the light, the words Daniel had said kept repeating over and over in his head. At long last, he made a choice, a daring, unorthodox choice. A news conference was convened by him. As they stood in front of a swarm of reporters and cameras, everyone was waiting for another historic announcement, like a new Tesla model or news regarding the Mars trip. Elon, on the other hand, talked about the churchgoers he met and the difficulties they were experiencing. "I've spent my life building the future," stated the man, "but tonight I'm committing to building something else, a network of sanctuaries where people can find hope and healing." The news startled everyone. Public perception wasn't important to Elon, despite what many viewed as a PR trick. It came down to acting on a gut feeling. Months after the church had undergone renovations, Elon went back to see it. A thriving haven for those in need, it has transformed from a crumbling relic into something new. The streets were filled with the gentle murmur of chatter and the sound of children's giggles. A wide grin spread across Daniel's face as he stood at the entrance, patiently waiting for him. Daniel told her, "You've done something extraordinary," as they embraced again. No, Elon shook his head in response. "This is not my doing. The individuals below are responsible for making it a reality. I merely provided them with the necessary resources." Daniel gleamed with delight. Sometimes giving others the tools is the most important thing you can do. Stepping inside, they found a bunch of people enjoying a dinner together. Many were happy to see Elon, and others even told him personal tales about how much his arrival had meant to them. As he listened, a feeling of contentment that had been absent for years surged through him. There was no short-lived joy like that of a successful quarter or launch. This went beyond the surface. Elon remained by Daniel's side in the doorway as the sun dipped below the horizon, bathing the sanctuary in a gentle, golden light. As if to say that hope may emerge from the darkest of circumstances, the ringing of church bells reverberated through the streets. Daniel shifted his gaze towards him, his countenance suddenly grave. Elon, you have begun a journey, but this is only the beginning. We still have a ways to go. Elon grinned, his thoughts already racing with possibilities. Because he was really interested, he inquired, what's next? Daniel's answer was profoundly straightforward. When the moment arrives, you will be aware. Please be attentive. For the first time in a long time, Elon felt a sense of tranquility, not because he had accomplished anything tangible, but because he had fully embraced a mission that extended beyond his own life. On his way out of the sanctuary, he had a revelation. The man whose childhood ambition had been to rule the galaxy had discovered his true calling on this planet. Thank you for taking the time to watch this video and for joining me in exploring this thought-provoking journey. If this story inspired you, don't forget to hit the subscribe button and stay tuned to Velvet Sovereigns for even more captivating and meaningful stories. Your support motivates us to keep creating content that touches hearts and sparks meaningful reflection. See you in the next story.